The Art Lewis Show. There is an organization called the Bay Area Women's Center that we're going to talk about this morning, and a very special fundraising campaign coming up that's a men's campaign that we'll talk about. A couple of guests. First of all, the Director of Development for the Bay Area Women's Center, and we say good morning to Lindsay Richardson.
Good morning, Art. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. With her is a guy I'm not used to seeing dressed up the way he's dressed up, but that's because he has a new position as vice president with our friends at TriStar Trust. He's been in this area for a long, long time, going back to Bay City Times days and MLive days and Michigan Sugar days, and now he is the honorary chair of this men's campaign we're going to talk about this morning. We say good morning to Rob Clark.
Good morning, Art. It's great to be back.
First time I've seen you without a bag of sugar in your hand.
Yes, I know. And wearing a tie. How about that?
Wearing a tie. Very nice, by the way. Looks very nice.
Thank you.
Take a picture. It won't last long. So before we get started on the campaign, Lindsay, give us an overview of the history of the Bay Area Women's Center and what it does.
The Bay Area Women's Center has been around since 1975, so over 50 years of service, and our mission is to eliminate domestic violence and sexual assault. We do that by supporting any individual who's been impacted by domestic violence or sexual assault through our emergency shelter, counseling, therapy, our sexual assault nurse examiner program, and 24/7 crisis hotline programs.
If I were going to compare it, is it similar to what, say, an Underground Railroad does?
Underground Railroad in Saginaw, Shelter House in Midland, there are sister agencies. There's several across the state of Michigan, and we all work together as best we can to serve survivors.
And I seem to remember a number of years ago, there was a huge campaign for a building, if I remember right. And I'm trying to think of who led that campaign. Was it the Crowleys? Or I don't remember who was involved in that.
For our building, the Women's Center?
Yeah.
That would have been back in 99 and 2000.
Was it? That's about right. And I think it was somebody
Alice
from
and Jack
General
Wirt.
Motors. And somebody from General Motors was involved, too, if I remember right. There were a number of people involved.
There was a lot of people involved. I was in 4th grade, so I don't know the specifics of it. But our generous donors that were the catalyst gift for that building were Alice and Jack Wirt.
Yeah.
And we've been in that facility since 2000. It's our forever home.
Were you here then?
I had just gotten to Bay City.
Just gotten to Bay City. So
yeah, March of 2000 I moved here. So that was all probably happening concurrently.
Yeah. So the obvious question to me is, it's the Bay Area Women's Center, and there's a men's campaign. Let's talk about this.
Sure. Absolutely.
You know the history of it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important to know that, not just women are victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Men are victims as well. And the Women's Center exists to serve women, men, and children. Actually, a lot of families come through the Women's Center. So that's important as kind of a starting point. The men's campaign is a way for men to show their support for this really important work, and also an acknowledgement that men have a strong voice in our community. And when men stand up and speak out and put their name on the line and say, we are not going to be a community that tolerates domestic violence, not going to be a community that tolerates sexual assault, there's some real power in that. And that's what the men's campaign is all about.
And while it's true that there are men who have been victims, I think if we look at case studies, we would probably all agree the majority of perpetrators are men. And when you have a campaign like this, the perpetrators are few. Those that support the women are many.
Yeah, and that's the idea here. And I've seen, from past years, this roster of men's names that contribute to this campaign and take a stand against domestic violence, sexual assault. And it's very important to know that exists in our community, that there's so much good and so much support. So that's what we're all about again this year.
And who tapped you for the honorary chair position? Were you out of the room or something happened?
Well, so a couple things happened. First of all, last year's campaign chair was our friend Matt Fallon, and he did a phenomenal job.
Yes, probably
raising
one of his
money.
responsibilities was finding the next guy, right?
I think so. So he had kind of planted the seed with me, a year ago.
Good for him.
And then Lindsay called, a couple months ago and said, "Hey, it's time for another men's campaign. Are you interested?" And I will just say, easiest yes that I've ever given to be involved, and it's a real honor for me. But just there's a mission here, and we're working hard to raise money.
So when does the campaign run? What's the period of time?
Yeah, so the campaign kicked off about a month ago, and it runs until the end of the first week of June. So we've got about one more month to raise money, and we're doing very well so far. To date, we've raised almost $21,000, and we've got a goal to raise $30,000. But with another month left, I think just internally I've sort of increased my goal. So we'll just raise as much money as we can.
Knew that was coming.
The more the merrier.
So are there events that are included in this, or is this simply get out your checkbook and donate?
Yeah, it's really just get out your checkbook and donate, or go online and donate. Donating is very simple. You can do it all online through the Bay Area Women's Center's website. And the only events that are tied to this are what fundraisers the Bay Area Women's Center already does, where we're promoting the event. And we'll be at the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce's Eye Opener Breakfast on May 15th to talk about the men's campaign. But otherwise, there's not an event to attend. There's not a dinner. This is truly just kind of a grassroots effort in the community.
But if at the Eye Opener, folks, you happen to see a big fishbowl on the table, fill it up.
You'll see a QR code on the screen, and we'll encourage all the men in the room to get out their phones.
And the campaign, you have a goal of $30,000. If you make more, fine. What does that money go to?
That supports all of our efforts at the Women's Center. We're facing a time of decreased government funding. We know that our next grant year is going to be substantially lower than in past years.
Federal or state?
Both.
Really?
Both levels. And the men's campaign is really instrumental in helping us meet some of those shortfalls, but also be able to spread more education. It's not just the dollars that we're raising that are supporting our free of charge services, but it's also the advocates that we're creating in the community, the education that we're able to share, because that's just as important as the funds that we're generating, is more individuals in the community talking about domestic violence and sexual assault and supporting survivors so they can find services.
Lindsay, I have to ask this. We have been talking about domestic violence for years and years and years. It is nothing new. In all of that conversation, in all of that education, in all of the work of law enforcement, in all of the work of the women's centers like yours, have we made a dent?
It's hard to say. It's really tough because there's no true measure that domestic violence is happening less. We know that
a lot of it you never hear about.
Yeah, a lot of it we never hear about. About a third is what's reported to law enforcement. So when we see that annual report from the Michigan State Police, that's only capturing a small fraction. Domestic violence isn't always physical violence. It's mental, emotional, financial, isolation, and those are things that law enforcement can't do anything about. So there are so many survivors that they don't even have the option to engage law enforcement because there's no true crime being done. But they still qualify for our services because those mental and emotional impacts can be just as damaging, if not more damaging, than the physical violence.
All right, we're going to take a break, come back, talk more with our guests in just a couple of moments here on the Art Lewis Show. Let's see if we can give away a little bit of money right now. Here's your All right, we're back with you here on WSGW, and in studio with us, we have Lindsay Richardson. She is the development director for the Bay Area Women's Center, and the man who is the honorary chair of the men's campaign. He is Rob Clark, who it's hard to keep up with because every time I see him, he's got a new title. But it takes people like Rob, and Lindsay, you can comment on this. It takes people like Rob to keep these organizations going and keep them solving, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. Having that extra voice in the community, sharing what we're doing and encouraging others to join us, that makes all the difference.
Are there roles for volunteers at the Bay Area Women's Center?
Always. Volunteers are really important to what we do. We actually just honored one of our volunteers at our annual dinner, our Wildly Gourmet dinner. We gave an award to John Janes. He's been volunteering with the Women's Center for over 10 years, and he comes weekly. He comes several times a week to operate our crisis hotline, and that is such a huge area of support for individuals volunteering with the Women's Center because it allows staff to focus on serving our survivors.
So I have to ask, I mean, the majority of your clients are going to be women. Yeah, there could be men, but the majority are going to be women. And you have a guy answering the crisis line. Does it cause hesitation on the women's part?
It can, but he's quickly, you can tell that he's a very kind and empathetic person. He's also got a super deep voice, and it's hard not to listen to it, that real deep baritone. I always talk about that. I mean, he shared a story with me, a mom who had a young daughter staying in our shelter, and the daughter was scared of men because of the experience that her mother had been through. And she asked the favor of John, can you just talk to my daughter? Can you just help me out a little bit? And he just sat and listened to her. He just made eye contact with her, and they just talked a little bit. And every time she came back for services after that, for her own therapy, she wanted to say hi to John. Every time she visited, she wanted to make sure that little child wanted to say hi to him. And who knows what sort of impact that had in her life moving forward. But he was just willing to listen, and that's what he does best.
Well,
and
that's, and that sometimes that's half the battle in everything, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Very, 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 very true. And you can't listen while you're talking.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It's a one-way street. One-way street. So what other services are provided by the Women's Center? A woman comes to you who had issues, obviously. What's the protocol? What takes place? And how do they first come to you?
A lot of survivors are coming to us by calling our 24/7 hotline. The number is 989-686-4551. And 24/7 means 24/7. It doesn't matter what time of night, what day it is, holiday, weekends, whatever. There's an advocate who's ready to listen, especially if you're experiencing violence or threats in that moment. We're there to help you. And our goal with any survivor who reaches out to us is to meet all their needs. We'll help them identify their obstacles and figure out how to overcome those and reach those goals, whether it's through our services or connecting with other community resources.
Out of curiosity, how often does law enforcement have to get involved?
That's up to the survivor if they want law enforcement involved. Even our sexual assault survivors that are coming to us, it's totally their choice if they want to make a report, if they want to move forward with pressing charges, anything like that. And we always ask that question. If something's happening right now, do you want us to call law enforcement? Sometimes law enforcement can complicate what's happening because then there's an outside source causing strain in that relationship. It could be another point for the abuser to abuse more if the situation is, well, you called the cops on me and I'm extra mad now sort of situation. So it really has to be the choice of the survivor because they know their situation and their safety best.
But they've already come to you. You take them out of that situation?
If they've made that choice, yes.
Again, that's their choice.
It is. Everything is their choice.
Series of choices.
Domestic violence and sexual assault comes from power and control. The abuser wants to establish power and control over someone. And a very important part of our services is empowering survivors, giving them that power and control back. Because if they're not making that choice, then it might not be a successful choice for them. If somebody decides to leave an abusive relationship, to leave a home where they feel threatened, that is likely the most violent time that they're going to experience, the most dangerous time that they're going to experience, because that abuser is going to do everything they can to find them, to reestablish that power and control. And it's a very difficult choice for somebody to decide to leave that home situation.
Out of curiosity, we live in this electronic communications age. Has that impacted the nature and amount of domestic violence?
It can, when you're looking at the mental and emotional side of domestic violence.
That's what I thought
Absolutely.
about.
That's another way for an abuser to reach out, to maintain control, to maintain connection, constantly be calling, where are you? What are you doing? It can really reduce your barriers. Your personal boundaries are limited when you've got such access to a person through cell phones and social media.
What's the impact on children?
It runs the gamut. If a child is experiencing violence themselves, they can internalize a lot of that. So we've got our therapists that are specific to supporting children. And when they are witnessing violence in the home, it might not actually be them experiencing the violence. They can feel a lot of responsibility for that. If I had just completed my homework sooner, this wouldn't have happened. If I had just been able to protect my mom, this wouldn't have happened. And it's never the fault of the child. It's always the fault of the abuser and the abuser alone. So our therapists help children work through that and understand. It's a really difficult dynamic for a child to understand when violence is happening in the home. So they help them understand that. And the goal there is that generational violence, that normalization of violence, that we break the cycle there so that those children are able to seek and support healthy relationships in their life in the future.
So you mentioned therapists.
Mm-hmm.
What other services are provided? A woman comes to you
Yep.
out of a domestic abuse situation. What's intake like, and what happens after that? Assuming she's chosen to be with you.
Yeah. So first and foremost is that 24/7 crisis hotline. That's how most people reach out to us. And then we'll establish an appointment if they're seeking non-residential services, which can be that therapy, whether it's a group therapy session or an individual session. If they're coming to our shelter, we'll make sure we have a room available, and they'll come in and we'll get them settled in our emergency shelter. We have 12 bedrooms and 32 beds on site.
How often is it full?
All the time.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
And it's not a question of how many beds is the right amount of beds. The answer is if you have beds, they will be full, no matter the number of those. We have advocacy services, so that's reaching out to those community resources to meet those other needs. And our sexual assault nurse examiner program is highly trained nurses that first and foremost will check a survivor to look at their health, make sure there's no other medical needs that need to be addressed. And then secondarily, they'll gather forensic evidence if an individual wants to press charges on their assailant. And having a highly trained nurse is incredibly important in that work because they will act as expert witnesses too if that case goes to court. And their work is harder to poke holes in as far as the evidence collection because they know all the correct steps they need to take and they do it all correctly so as not to make any of that evidence inadmissible. And we also have a what's the name of it? TSH, Transitional Supportive Housing Program, escaped me for a moment. And that's an entirely grant-funded program, and families can stay there. It's off-site apartments for up to 2 years, and all of their rent and utilities will be paid.
Wow.
And then at the end of those 2 years, we work with them to secure employment, financial planning, so that they're really on the best foot when those
Which
2
is
years
why
are
you
done.
need Rob Clark doing what he's doing.
Absolutely. That's why we need Rob.
That's why we need all the men in our community to stand up.
Yeah. Talk more about it after the break. We'll be back with our guests.
Save big money on everything. Members, when your call to service ends, your mission doesn't have to. Go from GI to IT in just a few months at My Computer Career. Prepare for a high-demand career in cybersecurity, protecting people, systems, and institutions from real cyber threats. Cyber warriors are needed now. Will you answer the call? Go to mycomputercareer.edu/CWP to learn more. That's mycomputercareer.edu/CWP, an elite CompTIA certification partner. VA education benefits are available to those who qualify.
If you want unlimited
Hi, we're back with you here on WSGW in the studio. From the Bay Area Women's Center, its development director, she is Lindsay Richardson, and the honorary chair of the Men's Campaign, a fundraising campaign for the center, he is Rob Clark. So what have you been doing to encourage your buddies to loosen up the checkbook?
Yeah, so I've been doing some online videos on social media, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and the Women's Center, of course, has been sharing that. So I've interviewed a number of people, a member of the board of directors of the Women's Center. I've interviewed the executive director, Jeremy Rick. I interviewed Lindsay. That's how we kicked it off. And then this past week, we posted a video with some really exciting news about the men's campaign. And it ties into my employer, TriStar Trust. The men's campaign is the recipient of a $5,000 matching grant from the TriStar Charitable Foundation. So that is the charitable foundation arm of TriStar. And that's really important because that money is going to match any new or increased donations this year. So we're really, really excited about that. And again, it's a $5,000 matching grant. So what we've been telling men is if you donated last year and you can increase that donation even by a little bit, that increased amount will be matched dollar for dollar. And likewise, if you have not donated to the men's campaign, if you didn't give last year and you give this year, every dollar will be matched. And we ask for a minimum gift of $100. So a new donor with $100, that's going to be matched, brings the total value to $200. And again, we're out in the community, spoke at the Wildly Gourmet Dinner fundraiser. We'll be at the Bay Area Chamber's Eye Opener Breakfast next month, and just doing all we can to get the word out.
Tell us about some of your other fundraising, like the Wildly Gourmet Dinner. I mean, it's already passed, but tell us about these things that you do to raise funds.
We have 3 events throughout the year, and all of those raise unrestricted dollars to support our program. So the areas of greatest need in our agency are supported through those events. The Wildly Gourmet Dinner is in the spring, and we, like I mentioned, we give an award, the Allison Jack Wirt Embodiment of Hope Award, to someone who supports us in all different ways, whether it's a volunteer, a donor, or somebody who's out in the community. We like to honor people. We don't have a lot of opportunities often to give something back, so we're excited to do that in the springtime. And then in the summertime, we have the Judy V. Spencer 5K9, this year sponsored by Junior Janka, who is the goodest boy of Frank R. Janka III, a local realtor and broker. And that raises money specifically to support the needs of survivors coming to us with their pets. So we're not, unfortunately, we can't house pets in our shelter.
Oh, really?
We don't have the right filters to be in our air filtration system to manage all that pet dander, but we will pay for the boarding costs for survivors who are able to leave with their pets, as well as address any veterinary needs that those pets need to be able to go into a boarding facility. And then in the fall, our Power of the Purse event, sponsored by Dow Credit Union, is coming up, and the theme for
That's been around a while.
It has. I think we're in our 13th year now. Both of our events are 13 years old. And Power of the Purse is garden party themed this year. So we're really excited to do something a little bit different, encourage folks to dress up when they're coming to join us. And they voted on it last year. It wasn't my first choice.
Party.
Get a fascinator and invest in some florals. Yeah.
See, there's another one called Denim Days.
Yes.
If you were chair of that, you could have worn jeans instead of the suit and
I
tie.
know. Denim Days is great. I've been involved in Denim Days in the past.
So what is Denim Days?
Denim Day is actually tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. So
perfect timing.
April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Right.
And Denim Day is a national day of protest, essentially, where you wear your jeans to show support for survivors of sexual assault. There was an Italian case years ago where an assailant was convicted initially, but then the Italian Supreme Court overruled that conviction because the victim was wearing tight jeans, and they made the determination that it had to be consensual because
the old she asked for it.
there's no way he could have taken the jeans off of her without help. And Denim Day just means that clothing is not consent, and we will show our support for survivors and condemn that thought about sexual assault.
We used to hear that a lot. We don't hear that as much anymore. She asked for it.
I mean, that's part of the work that we're doing, because why doesn't she just leave? She was asking for it because of what she was wearing.
Yeah.
Those sorts of questions and comments, those are victim blaming, and that's the education that we do in the community, is to make sure that the community knows that nobody is ever asking for this to happen to them. Nobody's getting dressed in the morning saying, I hope I get raped today because I look really good.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever thinking that.
We heard a survivor speak at the Wildly Gourmet dinner, and she said, "It is not your fault. You are not alone.
Yeah.
The blame always lies with the abuser."
All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back, one more segment with our guests. And back with us here on WSGW, the development director of the Bay Area Women's Center. She is Lindsay Richardson, and the honorary chair of the men's campaign, he is Rob Clark. Have you seen much impact from human trafficking and things of that nature?
Human trafficking is outside of the scope of our mission, but there is definitely crossover between sexual assault and domestic violence survivors. Underground Railroad is doing a lot of work with the Michigan Coalition for Human Trafficking. That's something that's a little bit difficult for me to speak on since it's outside of our mission, but we do work to support those survivors as well because we know that, like I mentioned, there's that crossover.
How about elder abuse? That's another one.
Mm-hmm. These crimes happen to people of all ages. We've had people get a sexual assault exam from 0 years old to 99 and come and engage with our nurse examiners. And same with domestic violence. They don't discriminate. It doesn't matter how much money you make in a year. It doesn't matter where you work or how old you are. These crimes are pervasive in our society.
And you said earlier in the very beginning that you also serve men.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen actually many victims?
We
Male
do serve
victims?
We serve men. With a name like the Women's Center, it's a little bit prohibitive to men coming to receive our services. But in any given year, like 12 or so men will engage with our services across the scope, whether it's in our shelter.
But there's no
or
other place
therapy.
to go for them.
Not in Bay County.
There's
No,
not a
in Bay and
men's-
Aranet County, we're the only agency that supports survivors with very
Of
specific.
any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Process the same, though?
It's the same. Yep. We treat everybody with the dignity and respect that they deserve and help them overcome their barriers, regardless of how they identify.
All right, Rob. So the men's campaign is going to continue through June, first week
First
of June?
first week of June.
June
yeah.
12th.
June 12th. Yeah.
And what kinds of information are you putting out there, and where can we find it?
Yeah, so the best way you can get information about the campaign and the best way that you can donate to the campaign is to go to the Bay Area Women's Center's website, and the web address is www.bawc-mi.org. And right up at the top of the page, there is a donate tab, and if you click on that, you'll see Men's Campaign. Click on that, and giving is very simple.
And then let's talk about the match.
Yeah, so the match is a $5,000 matching gift from the TriStar Charitable Foundation, and that matches any new or increased donations to this year's campaign.
So if you gave $100 last year, your first 100 this year isn't matched. But if you give 150, that 50 will
It'll
be
become
matched.
it'll be matched, and your gift will become $200.
And if you've never given before and you give now, that's fully matched.
Yeah, if you give $100 for the first time this year, that'll be matched dollar for dollar, so your gift will be worth $200.
Well, I wish you well with the campaign
Thank you.
and your increasing goal.
Yes.
I can sit here and watch his wheels turn as he's talking.
Yes, the goal is to raise as much money as possible.
Bingo.
To get as many men on that list as possible. And, if we're having a little fun with it too, the goal is to raise more money than Matt Fallon raised
I was just going to say, I
Hi,
know
Matt.
the reason. Why not? You
got to
might
have a
as
little
well.
fun with it too. But no, it is to just raise as much money as possible and to show our collective support as men for the Bay Area Women's Center.
And Lindsay, in conclusion, what do you tell a woman who may be a victim?
To any survivor, we want them to know that we're here for you. Their support, we're ready to listen, and we're ready to help.
And all they have to do is...
All they have to do is give us a call, 989-686-4551. Any time of day or night, we're ready to listen and answer any of your questions.
Lindsay, thanks for being with us today.
As
Appreciate
always,
it.
thanks for having me, Art.
Rob, thank you, sir.
A pleasure as always. Thank you.
All right, and we'll take our last break and then tell you what's ahead on Focus.
Make your house a home using quality.
For the Art Lewis Show for today, we'll be back tomorrow with lots more. Stick around for Focus. We're going to focus on the SVRC Marketplace with Rachel, all coming up this morning. None of it happens till after the news. The news is next from CBS with the World and National Report. Michael Percha is in the WSGW newsroom to fill you in on the region and the state. I'm Art Lewis. We'll be back with you with Focus right after the news, which is next.
Broadcasting from the Storm